Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Future Film Podcast. It's your host here, Robert Fitzhugh. With all that's going on in the media, we thought we'd take a moment to take a break from all that and speak to a very interesting and very talented filmmaker, Anthony Z. James. Anthony has crafted an amazing and very compelling feature using shot on an iPhone called Ghost. So we wanted to speak to Anthony this week a little bit about making a film on your phone, a bit about his background, it's his first time actually dabbling in shooting on a phone, and the end results are phenomenal. So we wanted to speak to him a little bit about his process and how he got into it. As always, this week's episode of the pod is brought to you by our wonderful sponsors, SV Assets. I'm getting better at these ads. SV Assets are revolutionizing smartphone photography. What they do is they offer really high-end optics, so lenses and cases for those lenses for your phone, and it really gives their customers a chance to improve and enhance all their creations. You can step up your game and stay a step ahead of the competition and boost your confidence today with these premium smartphone optics from SV Assets. As part of their sponsorship, they kindly offered us a 25% discount on all their products. If you go to their website, which is www.capturethemoments.se, and you use the checkout code Dublin25, this will give you 25% off all of their products, which is an amazing deal, and they're solid lenses. I've been using them myself over the last couple of weeks. So remember, SV Assets, by content creators for content creators. Let's now get on with the pod. Hi Anthony, how are you doing? Welcome to the show. How you getting on?
Hey Rob, glad to be with you.
Thanks for coming on and agreeing to chat to us today. For our listeners who are tuning in, we are talking to Anthony Z. James, who is the director of the very excellent Ghost, which is a feature-length film that you shot on which phone?
It was actually iPhone 8, I believe, not the Plus one, the simple one.
How did you, was it the phone you had in your pocket, or was it that you went out and you chose that phone specifically?
I actually had 7 in my pocket when I decided to do it.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, what was the most recent at the time? It was about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And 8 just came out, I think, by the time we started shooting.
Nice. And like, before I get into that, and before I get into about the whole kind of technological stuff like that, was this your first feature?
It was, yeah.
See, I'm really interested because, like, we deal a lot with shorts and things like that for the festival. Like, we deal an awful lot with shorts, but I'm always looking out for features, particularly features that are shot on phones, because I think it's very, very impressive, and I'm very, very interested in kind of that whole process and how you go about it. But like, what was your background before you even decided to kind of head out and make a film on a phone?
Well, I did study film at Westminster Uni here in London. And then was doing various kind of shorts on more appropriate, proper equipment and cameras, as you're supposed to by the book. Also doing some storyboarding work for the directors.
And then, like, how many shorts did you shoot? How much kind of stuff were you making?
Oh, I mean, I probably started when I was 15.
Oh, okay,
so
cool.
Must be over a dozen, maybe, various kinds of shorts.
And what was the kind of like, were you, before you got to shooting Ghost, were you working on film sets, or were you kind of producing your own kind of content, or was it like, were you off scratching together your own kind of shorts with little money, or were you working kind of on a professional set and kind of in the business working away full time?
So I was lucky to get into storyboarding as a daytime full-time job, like freelance, right out of uni. And because of my art school background before, and whenever I had time or saved up a bit of money, I always had a little short I wanted to make. So and try different genres, try drama, comedy, horror even, and you experiment that way and learn to find your people. I think most importantly.
Which out of the genres did you find the, like, what are those kind of genres did you struggle the most with? I only ask because the way you said drama, comedy, horror, normally people go horror, comedy, drama. You know what I mean? Horror seems to be the one that people go for first. But kind of, did you struggle with any of them in particular, or what were you least comfortable
kind of wrapping your head around?
Yeah, I would say probably, I struggle with all of them. When you make horror, it's never scary enough. When you make comedy, it's never funny enough. So, but I try to think about all of them as drama and just the genre being like just a little spice on the top, like a little angle, rather than building from scratch as a genre piece. Like probably the most successful as a short was this 5-minute film Roof Story that I got into Raindance a few years back. So that was probably our best success with festivals, and that was like a black comedy, but and it was very easy. Like from what the script was the story was easy to make it quite slapsticky. It's about a guy who wants to jump off a roof, and then he's stopped by a beggar, like a homeless man, who and they get into this situation, and it's sort of easy to get into slapsticks, very sort of straightforward comedy territory. But the way I saw it and what I enjoy most is try to find the human drama in it and tone it down always. Because I find in life, so many horrific situations feel like a horror movie in real life, or incredibly funny and awkward situations, and it's still real life. And I think when you watch a movie and it try to be funny or try to be genre, I think it's just difficult to believe, difficult to get into it, at least for me.
That's a really good way of looking at it, because like I was having a conversation with someone before on the show where we were talking about comedy and how difficult it is, but I would think comedy is so hard, especially if you set out or you intend to make something funny, then you're into dangerous territory. But what you're saying is a good way of looking at it. You're looking at the human drama side of it and the human element of it, and life is absurd and funny, but you should really focus on the kind of normality of it and then heighten it, as you said, put the spice on it with a bit of comedy here and there. But yeah, if you go out to set,
I agree with that completely. I was just thinking that when you try to make a good drama, like tugging the heartstrings, right, and you want it to be audience to cry, you don't want the actors to cry, the characters they don't want you to show emotions, right? And same with comedy. If you try to make it funny, it's not gonna be funny. But like the more you try not to make it funny, but the situation is ridiculous on its own. And you try to, as if the characters, like they're not laughing, So same with horror, It's you wanna if a characters try to avoid the situation, avoid the genre, maybe it becomes inevitably more stronger rather than selling it.
That's really interesting. So no matter what genre you're doing, you're always coming at it from the most realistic kind of human side of it, and then adding those extra elements to it to kind of beef it up for whatever genre it's in. But no, that's kind of interesting. I've done horror and I've done comedy. I haven't really done a drama. I did like a dark comedy / drama, but I really struggled with it because I suppose when I did a comedy in particular, I had a very core idea, and maybe I was just a weak director at the time, but I listened to too many people and I diluted that core idea down, and it was a very, very dark comedy, and it gradually became more and more slapsticky, but it wasn't very funny slapsticky, and it became so removed from real human behavior. And I had originally modeled it, like you're saying, it was based on a true story. It was very much about a human interaction. But by the end, it was some weird hybrid between human interaction meets slapstick, and it just was a weird thing that didn't quite land. But no, I know,
Robert. It's easy to, especially when everything is a collaboration, and if you don't have very strong moorings, what do you want to do? And you only learn that I've definitely was in a project where it was supposed to be something else, and it just through sheer journey of people's involvement and your own mind shifts, and you get new ideas, and then it comes out completely different, and especially with subtle things.
It's funny because I think I learned valuable lessons from that, because I generally tend to I'm still very collaborative, but on the early stages of stuff, I generally tend not to until I get to a certain point where I feel that I'm ready to take people's ideas on board, but not enough to let it kind of dilute my core idea is probably the best way to look at it. And to maybe add to what I've done, as opposed to, because I used to be the type of person, if you came to me and you said, I think you should do this, I'd be like, oh my God. And I'd go in and I'd start revamping scripts and changing stuff, because But in the end, I just wasn't kind of committed enough to my original idea, I suppose, and that's why it changed. But I mean, it's just interesting. That's a whole kind of thing about collaboration and stuff like that. But the one thing I had a quick question before we move on to Ghosts and stuff like that is, as a freelance storyboarder, what was that like? Are you very much like, how much? I'm just curious from a personal perspective, as a freelance storyboarder, are you like called in and you just have to interpret what the director tells you? How early in a project are you involved if you're a freelance storyboarder?
Well, it sort of depends, I guess, on a project, and it's quite flexible. But I mostly do commercials.
Oh, okay.
And it's quick turnaround. I've done a couple of movies, but mostly commercials, and it's very quick turnaround. And usually the client, the agency, they want to see director's vision or creator's vision on paper as a little comic book instead of a script, and helps them visualize. So usually you come in and you translate, in a way it's like translator. It's a different language. You're translating into visual language. You agree on the style. You agree what they want the end result to look like, because it's quite variety of options to go for. Either something very quick, rough shooting boards just for the team to be on the same page, or sometimes it's very elaborate keyframes that you can even decide on a grading. The look of the colors way before it's even shot. Like so many projects that we've done, people don't believe that they're done months before the shoot, because they look exactly, like almost like stills from the film.
Like storyboard. That's incredible.
So I guess, you just adapt. You adapt to what director needs, and try to help them.
Just just because I'm absolutely fascinated by it. Do you find sometimes that some directors aren't very good at articulating their vision? Do you find there's like when you're translating, like you said, you're translating? Do you find sometimes it's hard to kind of collaborate with somebody?
It definitely needs experience. I think like most things, with experience, you learn to. I wouldn't say that can't explain it. It's just everybody explains it differently, and everybody has different things that they care about, and and often they don't even want to do storyboards. You see, because it's usually
that's interesting.
A lot of directors, they love shooting documentary style, improvisation style, and they want to be free on the set. But then the client, the people who are organizing the whole thing, they want to see, some sort of guidelines where it's gonna, what it's gonna look like, because they're investing a lot of money in it, and there's a whole corporate structure behind it. So, I try to come in and say, okay, I've, some people hate the process, and you've been forced into it perhaps, but trust me, after this, you're gonna love it. You're gonna enjoy this, and you try to be a friend. Try to help them, and then bridge that gap, really.
I know from that's fair enough, because I know from working with corporate clients and stuff like that, generally they tend to be on board with the director's view and opinion until they see it, and then they're like, we want changes. So if you're in a position to be able to kind of have that clear and laid out for them in advance, that probably minimizes your post-production work on the back end when everything kind of is visualized exactly the way it was from day one.
It helps everybody. Yeah, for sure. Like, funny thing. I mean, I didn't storyboard my films. Yeah. My films are not storyboarded. It's curious,
you have it in your head, I suppose, and that's kind of, I suppose, I mean, they always say you should storyboard, but it's strange if you're a storyboard artist and you don't end up storyboarding your own stuff. But I mean, that's like most things. Some people work in social media.
Look, I would advise everybody to do that, and I did, on shorts, but on this one we didn't really eventually, because the team was so small, and then there was not really many people we need to account for, and explain it, and it was such a run and gun kind of thing. You can't really you can't come in too prepared, because you're going to be disappointed. So you got to have vague guidelines, and you just follow that and see where it takes you. But it depends on the project, like, again, most of those projects I had to storyboard, and they sometimes end up being exactly like planned, sometimes very different, but it's required by the by how things are done, and that helps a lot. When you have a big team and people, responsibility ladder above and below and all that, to bring everybody on the same page, because it's just easy to misinterpret so many things, and visual language is universal. So you have the little comic book of the thing you want to do, and wherever they are in the world, there's no risk of misinterpreting, because this is the same thing. So it really works in most cases. Just sometimes you not always have time, you not always have a budget. Sometimes people we get involved in variety kind of projects, from shorts to huge features and everything in between. And sometimes it's just people would like to have boards because it's fun to do sometimes even, and everybody loves to see their project in advance on paper, and maybe figure out some potential issues that are gonna arise. But often it's just the time and budget. There are better ways to spend your time and money. In my case, I didn't have time or funds to build like a storyboard book, of a film, because of the circumstances. Again, you have to adapt.
So, just in regards to that, so just to talk a little bit about Ghost in that capacity, was Ghost your first feature?
It was, absolutely, yeah.
And what was it? The story is brilliant, right? I think it's really good. It's really well shot, especially for a first feature, regardless of whether it's on a phone or not. It's very, very captivating, very engaging. But why shoot on a phone? I mean, was it a logistics, was it a time and money thing, or was it a challenge?
I'd say both, really, because I remember promising myself to shoot a feature before I'm 30, and I was, I think, 28 at the time, and so realized how fast approaching that is, and then promised to myself. And the story was sort of bits of a story floating in my head for years. And we shot a little short day one, which is like the same character, and also first day out of prison. This is, similar kind of story. And a lot of things worked really well there. We all believed, and wanted to explore it further. And mostly the lead character, and then the actor who played the lead was brilliant. And so we wanted to try that further. And then just looking at it's just many things came together. Like, for example, looking at a current industry situation, where do you put your film? What happens with your film? How do you get your audience? All this stuff. And I really wanted to try and experiment with it and find out for myself, instead of reading all different opinions. And secondly, after almost a decade after film school, I wanted to see if I can pull it off, if I can tell a story. If the whole goal was just to see if it makes sense and if it's watchable, if you can make a story that the arc of a character and the logically falls through, and then if it's engaging enough to last for 90 minutes. And then I need the most straightforward way to do it, proper ways to write a script for 2 years perhaps, and develop it. And
was that the development process was 2 years?
Well, you have to get find maybe a writer who's better putting things on paper. I'm not that good at specifically like dialogue writing.
I would be the same as that. That's one of the things that always slowed me down, is that I couldn't find someone to write scripts for me. Oftentimes I would prefer if somebody handed me a script that I could adapt. But I always found the writing process to be, I'm just not good at writing. I have no patience for it. It's a skill in itself that I just don't have.
Exactly. I'm the same. And people say, oh, go find a writer. And, finding a writer to the story that you want to tell, and somebody who's able to tell that story with you, it's like finding like your spouse. You can't just go and find them. It happens or it doesn't. So if destiny doesn't land you somebody in front of you, then you have to get it done anyway. And I thought if I'm gonna just sit down and try to put on paper, go through all proper channels, by that it's gonna take me years, and I might not have I might want to do something else by that time, different projects.
Yeah.
And again, like it depends on a story, on a project. Certain things fit the process and certain things don't. And the story was such that I was able to tell it in a more simplistic way, and with a lot of improv, and without the excessive funds and finding funds. You have to, anyway, like any project I do, I sit down and say, okay, what's the bare minimum I could do this with? Yeah. And if it's a certain project that requires, I don't know, sets and large cast or et cetera, you just put it, in back pocket and wait for different times on different circumstances. But this one was something that I believed we could shoot around what was possible there. Just reach out and grab it. And I think Tangerine, came out like a couple of years before.
Yeah.
And I was sort of hearing about it, and people, all keep talking, like a new wave was saying, just go and do it. People shoot on the phones. Why don't you just shoot on the phone? And that was the zeitgeist. And but nobody was actually doing it en masse, right?
Yeah, nobody was doing like features and something that requires at the time something that requires a lot of work and a lot of equipment.
That was the only. But that film came out, it was released on big screens and won a bunch of awards, and it was proper film, right? And I remember one evening I was really at the time of my life, I got to do something, and I remember the film, and I watched the film. And I started researching all the equipment that I used and what's the possibility of the iPhone, all that. I didn't sleep that night.
Yeah.
And remembered the bits of the story that I wanted to tell, and saw it's just connections of the practicality and the story, right? And there's a practical aspect, how you're going to shoot, where you're going to shoot, with whom, how long it's going to take. On the other side is the story that you want to tell. So you can't really compromise. You have you can't. Okay, I'm not going to change the story around, but you can marry them if it's possible, right? So yeah, that night, 24 hours, sitting in front of a table and just trying to put it together. I was just really fired up. And I saw that it's supposed to be possible if the the cast and then a few essential supporters were agreed with me, because you can't do it on your own, right? You're not going to shoot yourself. I mean, you can. Again, project, but you need to find a cast who believe that it's no waste of time to perform in front of you with the iPhone.
What was the length of time on that shoot?
So the shoot itself was exactly 2 weeks. Maybe we had a week in the middle, that we didn't shoot. We were like preparing.
Yeah.
It was pretty tight. But the thing is, that was possible because of the iPhone again. Just purely comparing with proper shoot with the bigger team, cameras, lights, all that stuff, is just the setup, changing setups, moving setups,
it's just fast.
All that. Yeah, it's just so fast. So we worked on exactly probably 2 scenes a day. You have a morning scene, afternoon scene, and you just rock up and you shoot. And we used I think all the exteriors of available light. Natural light, all the interiors, mostly practicals or available light from the windows, and a little bit of maybe a couple of small LEDs just to save us where this is impossible.
Yeah.
So you can just, the actors are ready to go, and they actually feel more in the mood when you just go. And
sometimes that downtime while you're moving lights and setting up cameras and stuff like that on set can be a real momentum killer. So it must be nice to just show up at a location, spend X amount of time setting up, and then just fire through it.
It's almost the camera isn't there even.
Yeah, it's almost. And were you able to? Did you take advantage of the fact that you could play back your footage there and then on set and see where you've done wrong or what stuff looked like, and be able to kind of tinker and tailor as you're moving?
Yeah, of course. I think when it's available, such a thing, and so easily available, it's important not to start abusing it. Reminded me of my first shoot ever when I was just experimenting with a camera we found, and half of the time, if not more, was sitting and watching it between the takes because everybody was so amused by instant replay. Here it's important not to get into that because the battery, time, all that stuff. You can check stuff that you've just shot, but mostly you try not to because it eats up the battery, it eats up the time.
And then, because you look like you really looked out in the sense that you had an incredible cast. I mean, it's the visuals are brilliant, and then you've got a really, really good cast, and that kind of elevates the entire thing. like regardless of how you shot it or what it was shot on, it's a really impressive feature debut, like particularly performance-wise, working with actors. And the fact that you shot it on a phone and you were able to do it quick with those fast turnarounds is almost like a cherry on top. But it seems so well put together. In terms of rehearsing and stuff like that, and rehearsing for those outdoor shots and things like that, how long did you spend kind of tinkering with the phone to figure out what its limitations were and what you could get away with in advance of those kind of setups, those 2 setups a day? Or like, had you all that figured out exactly in advance, or was there any sort of kind of last minute, this isn't making sense, what are we going to do type stuff?
I think mostly the second, lesser option, because in a way it was silly not to test it more and to really know exactly what you're dealing with. On the other hand, if I knew the limitations fully before committing to the shoot, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, fair enough.
and one major reason is the shots, because everything is shot with one lens, right? It's one lens that is also very wide and very deep focus. So a close up would be a whole city, in the shot, or a whole pub, wherever you are. There's a shot when one of the characters looking at the St. Paul's, and you can see his profile and St. Paul's, in the same shot. So I did some tests before, just to see if generally if you can cover like wide, medium, close up, kind of. Mm-hmm. But you figure out as you go, because I was kind of maybe even afraid to test it fully and find out that it's too difficult. I don't know. But when you're in it, you're forced to come up with creative decisions and utilize that limitation. And I think the important thing is not to try to emulate a proper film that we used to, with nice shallow depth of field, with all those different lenses and then different capabilities. We all know you just, that's it, that's all you have, that's your tool. And then the shots, I kind of knew that I'm gonna have to probably, and I wanted to shoot aesthetic to be like long takes and 2 shots, with, I didn't want to do much back and forth, ping ponging of dialogues. We knew we're gonna have to go almost like documentary style, and that lent itself to that, and because we used a lot of improv, it was sort of, you can't really, a couple of scenes are back and forth cutting usual over shoulder close-ups, and that was the most difficult to edit, because when you improvise, one is going one way and then you tweak it. It's insane. Like there's one scene that looks very simple in the film, but I pulled my hair editing it, and I thought that's it. I'm not gonna make a film. But you try to, like you have a shot, okay, it's deep and it's wide, so you try to make it in a location that's interesting, all interesting behind and behind and behind, and that both performances are, I love to see what happens between performances, between the two people. When somebody's speaking, others reacting, you wouldn't cut at them, at the character. You wouldn't cut, because somebody's speaking. It's just kind of, I knew the limitation informed the aesthetic, and eventually worked out, I think, just about. But that's tough. Yeah.
It does. It has that kind of, when you're saying long takes and things like that, it has that kind of vibe to it. It's just a very polished looking, very realistic. The performances go a long way in that regards as well. It's a very realistic, very lived in film.
And you mentioned performances, and I think absolutely the cast carries the film, and that knowing that I'm going to have good casts that I found through other shorts that we've done before, key members of a cast, that either I'm going to do it with them or it's not going to happen. And if they sign up and not run away in the middle of a shoot, it's going to be, fine. So you just want to, I remember speaking with the sort of DP of the film, who ended up being more of a gaffer, helping us with the lights and, how best to set it up. And because it's impossible to find like a DP who's available for 2 weeks when you have no budget, really.
No budget,
when you have no interesting equipment to use, you just have iPhone. But like really, really great guy helping us with all that. And you remember when we met, And he said, okay, so what's your expectation? What do you want to, how you want it to look? What's your expectation of a film in terms of cinematography? And I said, really, I just want to capture it. I just want to capture what's happening. Just record. That's it. When you start with very minimal expectation.
Yeah.
And you just accommodating the performance, pretty much.
No, it's really kind of because I'm very interested when you say just an iPhone. What equipment did you use on that? Because I think people would be very interested to know when they see it what you used. What was your in terms of gimbals, lenses, and all that sort of stuff? Did you have much of that, or was it just the phone?
Of course. Yeah. Well, it's kind of impossible to achieve anything remotely similar with just the phone.
Yeah.
Purely because when you try to do handheld. The phone is very small, and your hand is so close to the actual lens.
Mm-hmm.
Just tiniest movement is translatable. Translates into this shake. That's not very nice. And so I watched Tangerine that night. Then I decided to make a film, and I then instantly dove into researching what kind of equipment they used, and I think we used pretty much the same equipment, just a bit more, newer versions, because a few years, a couple of years, I think, went on. I think they shot on 5, shot on iPhone 8. They used, I think, the same, probably was Osmo, maybe something else, but similar kind of gimbal, and they used like anamorphic lens adapters from Moondog. So shout out to Moondog, and I had to call. It is impossible to find in UK, so I had to call New York, the headquarters, and ask them about it and how to get it and order it, and ask them when they're gonna release the ones for the iPhone 8.
Yeah,
and I think I was one of the first ones to get for the 8.
Wow.
Because they weren't even releasing them, but I knew the phone was out. I knew they're gonna have to release something for it, so I called. I said, when is coming out? And they kind of sent me the earliest possible.
That worked out well.
Yeah, that things like that really I enjoy a little bit like that. They make you feel like it makes you feel like a big deal. Calling to New York about lenses.
It's a funny. I mean, I don't know how much it will be now, but there was that kind of feeling for a while where companies were so eager to kind of get their. It still is. I mean, Filmic Pro and all are still doing that, but companies are so eager to get people using their equipment that there was this type of thing. Like, I couldn't imagine emailing Canon and saying, "Hey, send me your latest lens," and they'd be like, "Sure, no problem," and they post it over to you. Do you know what I mean? There was this kind of excitement about people trying to get you to use their equipment and stuff like that, especially for filmmaking. And it's still there to a degree. I mean, there's a lot of maybe my Twitter bubble or whatever, but I deal a lot with manufacturers and stuff like that, and they always seem to be so supportive and so helpful of people using their equipment and going on about it. So it seems like a nice kind of system to be in. But no, that's crazy that you could just email them and they'd be like, "Oh, a new lens? Sure, we'll send it to you."
Yeah, well, I mean, pretty much I had to order it. I just wanted to make sure if they kind of said, if you order lens for 7, call us. It's almost, we'll send you the one for 8, but it's not officially. It's kind of out. So yeah, it was just having that conversation, having a little phone call
that kind of
there. It just makes you feel, like you're part of something new, something fresh.
Yeah, that's cool. So now, you mentioned earlier on, you said, if I knew, I wouldn't do it again. Now that you've done it, what are you going to do next? Would you do that again? Would you go down that road again, or would you go back to kind of shooting on traditional cameras?
Well, the term traditional cameras, I think it sort of expands.
It's changing. Yeah,
it's changing. And I think at the time that was the most straightforward way for me to do it. And like sometimes you feel like if I don't do this project now in the next few months, the circumstance is going to change, and with the cast, with everything, and you need to have certain personal circumstances as well. I think it's very important to note that on one hand, like everybody can go and shoot a film, right? But then to do it, you have to have time, and you have to have energy, and you have to have certain people who support you to do that. So just hopefully try to build that circumstance around you. And regarding your question about the equipment, at the time that was okay, I'm gonna go grab and shoot it because it's possible, because Tangerine came out. I think the day we started shooting, trailer for Soderbergh's Unsane came out. I was like, oh, we're going to shoot this now, and Soderbergh's just recently done something, so it felt like okay, so it might actually work out. But now, the goal isn't, like honestly, the goal wasn't to shoot on an iPhone. The goal was to shoot with something that you can just go and use, and it's gonna be okay. So I think the next step, I think now I just got a Blackmagic, the Blackmagic camera. I haven't shot anything properly. I just did some tests, but that's also seems like a slight different, maybe a bit closer to traditional look kind of film. Thing. But it's also seems easy to use, and I say like shooting an iPhone is just what it tells you. You can do things on different mediums. There's no like certain like rules that expand. You have to like used to be just film
told to one kind of thing.
And also the project. There's one thing is the project. What kind of story? Like if you want to, just aesthetic is certain stories asking for a certain aesthetic, and if you want to have some close-ups, intimate kind of shots or that sort of moody shots with with Shia LaBeouf, it's not going to happen with the iPhone. So you have to know what you're playing with, and we wanted to have a sort of documentary look, wide shots, that kind of thing. It worked, but I wouldn't say it works for every film. And
I suppose you use the tool for the job at hand. You mean if an iPhone works for you and it suits the thing, I mean maybe like if you don't want to do a World War II drama set in a bunker with all extreme close-ups, in pitch black might necessarily be your iPhone might necessarily be your weapon of choice, but
exactly like for example, if you shoot in one location, let's say minimal cast, one location, or shoot mostly interiors. Even nice interiors, you gotta have something with shallow depth of field, to really get most out of the location. If you shoot more exterior, even in our film, exteriors look way better than interiors, I'd say, just because you have all this depth. You can show this, the sky, the clouds, the city. It's there. There's no way to change that. I wouldn't say I would never shoot an iPhone. I wouldn't say that. It's not like I hated it. I enjoyed the so fluent and the results. Look, we screened it at a 500 feet cinema, like as a test screen, just to check if it holds up. I wanted to see if it holds up, the sound and the vision. And we exported shot in 4K, exported 2K DCP, and imagine 500 like commercial cinema.
It's
huge. It's huge, and it looks absolutely sharp. It looks fine. So if you're okay with not having that depth of field aesthetic, it's fine, and the especially movement that you can get with you're working with Osmo, that tourists use to run around Venice and all that stuff. So you can do that, and it look inconspicuous. You can grab shots around, even without a cast. I was running around town just grabbing some
B-roll
sky and river and this and that, just. Yeah, it's so free, So it depends on the project, but I wouldn't say no. I just probably would want to try something else. I think it's experimentation spirit is there. You want to try different things, and I shoot it with a potato if project allows it.
You're motivated to do another one anyway. You're trying to make one before you're 30, but you're ready to make another one.
Yes, absolutely. The process now is releasing and seeing how it works nowadays with indie film.
Well, that's
release.
That's a different world. That's a job in and itself.
But at the same time, I know filmmakers hate that, and but then who's gonna do it? Like so many films are lost because the filmmakers, the producers, the directors, they just go through it, send it to festivals. The festivals don't accept it, which is like so difficult nowadays, right?
And then you kind of give up and move on.
Yeah, they move on because.
A lot of times you're so excited about creating and doing the project that when it comes to the selling side of it, you're like, oh, well, and then you kind of want to jump onto another project and get that creative buzz again. But that whole selling stuff,
it's a shame. It's like necessary evil. And then if you approach it as a game,
100%.
And if you approach it, as a creative game, like, creating ads, finding audience, how you present a film, like, building a poster, all that stuff. If you don't loathe it, if you accept it and then try to enjoy it, and with films like that, there's no, boss above your head to push you. Just have fun, and still your film. If it's a good test to see if you love your film. If you like it, if you still love it, then you find a way to present it to the world, like a baby, like a kid.
That was the one, for me, that was the part of filmmaking that I really liked. That's why I liked producing. I liked the whole back end of it. I liked selling it to people and trying to find an audience. And I knew, when I studied filmmaking, I knew after 10 minutes, I was like, I don't want to direct anything, because I'd rather help very creative people make something. But I really liked that back end process of kind of figuring out markets and audiences and who's going to watch it and how they're going to watch it and poster design, all that sort of stuff, because I found it very, very interesting. I found the whole audience, because I like cinema and I like the whole audience interaction and the audience idea of cinema. So I always found that kind of really, really fascinating, which is why I ended up where I was. But in terms of people and finding an audience, where can people actually catch Ghost at the moment? Is there anywhere anyone listening can watch it, or is it still soon to be released?
Yeah, actually, it is released.
Cool.
Yeah, we're doing a few cinemas, like a very limited theatrical in UK, but which might be halted by the current
true
situation. Yeah, worldwide, it's like they canceled. Planning to cancel Cannes even, I think. Imagine all the big festivals that people eventually get into.
Yeah.
It's such a shame. Yeah. So might not happen, or might get pushed back. But same time, it's out on VOD on Amazon in UK.
Oh, cool.
And then outside UK, it's on Vimeo on demand. So you can definitely catch it now, right away, and check it out and give us a comment. Give us a review.
I'll run the trailer, and I'll find the link and I'll put it on the thing so I can get people to link to it and find it on Amazon. What did you say? It was on Amazon Prime, was it?
Yeah, it's on Prime.
Oh, Prime.
It's on Prime on yeah, currently in UK, and outside it's on Vimeo on demand. And I think only US still waiting for
cool.
one last festival, and then it's going to be out there in the summer. So, but if outside of US, it's absolutely available to check out.
Cool. Well, perfect. Well, we'll leave it on that note. So, thank you so much for chatting to us. It was very, very interesting. It was nice to get insight into making a feature, which is something I'd be very interested in doing myself. I was going to say before I'm 30, but realistically now before I'm 40. But
it's never too late, Rob, and thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
No worries. Okay, thanks so much.
That's it for our chat with Anthony for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I personally find the idea of shooting a feature on my phone a mammoth undertaking, so it's really refreshing to hear Anthony's kind of run and gun style to it, because the end results, if you're lucky enough to see the film, are phenomenal. So linking what he's saying with the quality of the end product is pretty amazing. If anyone wants to check out more about Ghost, you can find it out on ghost/movie.com. You can also check out the film yourself now on Amazon Prime UK and on Vimeo on demand worldwide. So it's hopefully going to get its kind of bigger release, but with all that's going on, who knows how long that'll take. But for the most part, you can check that out right now on Prime and Vimeo on demand. Thanks very much for tuning in. Be sure to check out kind of more stuff we have more podcasts on the horizon, and stay safe and stay indoors, and speak to you soon. Bye guys, thanks very much.